and go. Dominaria. Spoiler. Super hype. Video number 11. So when last we left off with Danitha Benalia's Hope, a white human knight which has a bunch of abilities and can attach equipment to herself from your hand or graveyard. Super powerful, super cool, super playable. Hoo-ha. But next up we have King Darien the 48th, whom I will nickname King Seahawk, for obvious reasons if you know about the Seahawk. He's for one green, one white, and one colorless, he's a 2/3 legendary human soldier. Other creatures you control gain +1/+1. Already value. But he also has an ability that says for one green and one white and 3 colorless, put a +1/+1 counter on King Darien and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Sacrifice King Darien. Creature tokens you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Well, there's your leader for your white weenie deck, or your green white weenie deck. Hoo-ha! King Seahawk. Next up is Sprouting Goblin, an interesting card. 1 red, 1 colorless for a 2/2 Goblin Druid with a kicker of green. When Sprouting Goblin enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, search your library for a land card with a basic land type. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And for 1 red and tap it, sacrifice a land and draw a card. Super useful goblin. So hoo-ha there. Elvish Hydromancer. 1 green, 2 colorless for a 3/2 elf wizard with kicker, 1 blue and 3 colorless. When Elvish Hydromancer enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create a token that's a copy of a target creature you control. Well, if you got the mana to spend, why not create copies? Because copies are cool. Next up, Automatic Librarian. 3 colorless mana for an artifact construct. That's a 3/2. When Automatic Librarian enters the battlefield, scry 2. Okay. Next up, another super hype thing that was also has a mention in the Rosewater spoilers. This is Vodelian Desecrator. 1 blue, 1 black for a 1/2 legendary Phyrexian Merfolk Wizard. Phyrexian Merfolk Wizard mentioned in the Rosewater spoilers. So this is the card. It says, tap, draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard an instant or sorcery card in this way, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. 2 colorless mana, sacrifice Vodelian Desecrator. You may cast target instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard this turn. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Activate only as a sorcery. Yet another thing that cares about stuff in your graveyard. Instants and sorcery. Next up is an interesting card in Elas Ilkor Sadistic Pilgrim. 1 white, 1 black for a 2/2 legendary Phyrexian Core Cleric with Death Touch. Holy value. But then it says, Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Hoo-ha! That's almost like having some of the vampires we've seen in previous sets. Hoo-ha! I don't think that people playing those kinds of decks will be unhappy about that. Definitely a target for instant removal. Excuse me. Next up, Phyrexian Rager. 1 black and 2 for a Phyrexian Horror. That's a 2/2. When Phyrexian Rager enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. A little bit of card draw there. Not unhappy. Next up, Marius, Scholar of Antiquity. 1 red, 1 green, and 1 colorless for a 3/3 legendary elf artificer. That was also mentioned in the Rosewater spoiler. She has tap an untapped non-token artifact you control. Add 1 green mana. Tapped 2 untapped target non-token artifacts you control. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. An elf that cares about artifacts? Like I said in the Rosewater spoiler, that's different. Next up, Tribute to Erborg. 1 black and 1 is an instant with a kicker of 1 blue and 1. Target creature gains -2/-2 until end of turn. If this spell was kicked, it gets an additional -1/-1 till end of turn for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. Another spell that cares about instants and sorceries in the graveyard. That's gonna be a theme. Hoo-ha. Next up, yet another reprint, but I don't think that people that play these kinds of decks will be unhappy about that, and that's Negate for 1 blue and 1 counter target non-creature spell. Next up is Phyrexian Missionary. 1 white and 1 for a 2/3. I believe Phyrexian Human Cleric. The card is in Japanese, so it has a kicker of 1 black and 1 with lifelink. When Phyrexian Missionary enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Well, hoo-ha! Spend the 4 mana, get a creature back from your graveyard, and you get for a low cast. Even without the kicker, for a low casting cost of 1 white and 1, you get a 2/3 with lifelink, which is most likely going to be a cleric. I don't think people that are playing White Life Gain are going to be unhappy about that. Hoo-ha! Next up is Baird, Argivian Recruiter. Again, another foreign language card. I think it's in Italian. So he is, for 1 red, 1 white, he's a 2/2 legendary human soldier. Says at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So if it's somehow enchanted or has counters on, has +1/+1 counters on it, you create a white soldier token. So this is a little token generator, little 1/1 creature generator, dude, for your white weenie decks. Hoo ha! Next up is Garna, Blood Fist of Keld. So it's 1 black, 2 red, and 1 colorless for a 4/3 legendary human berserker that reads, whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, it deals 1 damage. Otherwise, he deals 1 damage to each opponent. Well, that's for that's fun if you got a lot of little creatures and somebody tries to get rid of them. Hoo ha! Interesting. Next up is Erg, Spawn of Turg. 2 black and a green for a star 5 Frog Beast. Frog Beast was another creature type that was mentioned in the Rosewater spoilers. Erg, Spawn of Turg's power is equal to the number of land cards in your graveyard. Well, it is green and black, and we've seen some stuff that's green and black graveyard stuff with lands. It also says at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. So, Graveyard Matters deck. And finally, it says, for 1 black, 1 green, and sacrifice a land, you gain 2 life. Well, that's not bad at all. I can see a lot of uses for that. Next up is Linebreaker Baloth. 2 green and 3 colorless for a 4/5 beast within list. Linebreaker Baloth can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Beefy creature that can't be blocked by weenies. Well, that can find a home somewhere. Tear Asunder, yet another powerful card. Tear Asunder is for 1 green and 1 colorless as an instant with kicker, 1 black and 1 colorless. It says exile target artifact or enchantment. If this spell was kicked, exile target non-land permanent instead. Wow. So you can get rid of lots of stuff if you pay the full 4 mana. Super useful card. I can see that being played in a lot of decks. Well, decks especially care about green and black, but even in a green deck, 2 mana to get rid of an artifact or enchantment. That's good. That's good value for that type of removal. Next up is Vodelian Hexcatcher, which is for 1 blue, 1 colorless. It's a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard with Flash. Other Merfolk you control get +1/+1. Sacrifice a Merfolk, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1 colorless. Merfolk Lord that you can sacrifice Merfolk to do a non-creature counter spell. Yeah, I can agree with that. Next up is Extinguish the Light, which is 2 black and 2 for an instant that reads, destroy target creature or planeswalker. If its mana value was 3 or less, you gain 3 life. That's decent for a creature and planeswalker removal. Sheoldred's Restoration. 1 black, 3 colorless. There's a sorcery with a kicker of 1 white and 2 colorless. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If this spell was kicked, you gain life equal to the card's mana value. Otherwise, you lose that much life. Exile Sheoldred's Restoration. Well, you want to do the kicker, that's for sure. Next up is Thran Portal, a land gate, because gates matter in certain decks. Thran Portal enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. As Thran Portal enters the battlefield, choose a basic land type. Thran Portal is a chosen type in addition to its other types. Mana abilities of Thran Portal cost an additional 1 life to activate. Oh, so here's another thing that costs life to activate. Well, that's been a kind of a theme, Phyrexians and so I'm going to end it there. I'm at over 16 and a half minutes. We're going to have to, because we still got a whole bunch more spoilers to go, and I don't have the time to make videos that are hugely long. And so we'll see you on the next video. Have a great one.